Candy's Classic Game Shrine, everyone. Today, I'm going to review a game called Wagyan Land for the NES. It's a game not too many people have spoken about or let alone played on YouTube, so let's take a better look at it. Wagyan Land is a classic Namco side-scrolling puzzle game where you play as Wagyan, a little robotic dinosaur in a quest to save Wagyan Land and the villagers from the evil Dr. Devil. A bit off topic, but Wagyan reminds me of the dinosaurs you'd ride in Adventure Island 2 and 3. The main element of the game is platforming and stunning your enemies with various levels of roaring. While you play through, you'll notice that you can choose some of your paths. This is done by going to the top or bottom exit at the end of certain levels. This gives a good amount of replayability to the game, since you can do a few different runs that are never the same. You level up your power by collecting Wagyan heads, and when you collect 4 of them, you go into an invincibility mode for a few seconds. Later in the game, you come across an elder who gives you a treasure that powers up your roar. When you have this treasure, your roar can finally kill enemies. Depending on the paths you take during the game, you may also find other treasures that may or may not help you on your journey. Be aware that you can only have one of these equipped at a time. At the end of every stage, you face a boss. These boss battles are entirely different from the rest of the gameplay. Instead of platforming and attacking, you use your wits to defeat them in one of 2 different puzzle games. The games are Word Chain and Memory, or Match. Word Chain starts out by the boss choosing a word, and then you need to choose the next card by using the last letter of the boss's card, and so forth and so on. The last person standing wins. Memory is pretty self-explanatory. You just need to find the matching cards on the screen. A little tip though, when you find the special card in the memory game, you gain an extra 7 lives, so try to be on the lookout for that when you're playing. Despite the one-hit kills, it's quite easy to get through this game in its various levels. There were a few parts in some levels that made me want to rip my hair out, but I eventually overcame what I kept dying on. Mostly. There was also this one stage that reminded me a bit of the Sonic the Hedgehog game with its fast-paced gameplay. You basically ran up and down various ramps and jumped across gaps to more ramps. As you play through the platforming stages, you'll notice random little swirls popping up when you roar into the air. These are gateways to bonus levels, much like in Adventure Island, when you'd notice your weapon disappear on the screen, and then a cloud would bring you to the bonus stage. Remember when I said I mostly got through what I was dying from? Yeah, well, the one thing I've tried for days to beat is the final boss. I like to be thorough when I review my games, and I like to beat them before I put out my review, but honestly, I just had to admit defeat here. When you get to Dr. Devil, you'll notice he's a cheating bastard. He makes you play memory with him, and when you beat him, he turns around and says it was just a practice round. Then he makes you play a word chain game with him. But there's a catch. Up until now, none of the bosses had a point threshold to beat when playing the games, but now all of a sudden, Dr. Devil won't accept defeat unless you get enough points to reach the bar on the far left side of the screen. This is where I just couldn't win. I could defeat him in the game, but I just never had enough points to actually win. However, I looked up the ending and we're not missing much. Basically, all you see is the enemies falling down the tree that we made our way up to, and all of the other Wagyan are freed and just relaxing in the stages you previously played. Overall, I still found the game enjoyable to play and very cute. However, some issues I had with the game were the language barrier with the boss fights, had I not had the translation patch. Seeing a few bosses over and over, and sometimes the extremely tricky jumps. I should mention that while I thought the graphics were adorable, I do feel like there was just some level of detail that was missing that could have made it pop even more, despite being an 8-bit game. All in all, the game is relatively easy to beat and can be done in about an hour or so, minus the final boss. Is this game worth buying? I can't say I recommend that you go out and buy it, unless you can read some Japanese. And for those of you wanting to try it, there are some English patches that you can find floating around the internet that do make it playable. So that was my review for Wagyan Land for the NES. Let me know what you guys thought of the video and the game in the comments below. And until next time, guys, take care. I'd like to give a special shout out to my Patreon supporters, Barclay Crazy, Chipper Angeles Negreet, Joyful Sworn, Michael Carter, and the SideQuest Gamer. Thank you guys so much for your support. If you'd like to become a Patreon supporter of mine, the link is in the description below.